Alrighty, I think we are live. So, for anyone on the call right now or anyone on the YouTube live, this is Lead the Way with VSA, hosted by the Lighthouse Series, hosted by UNAVSA's Council of Regional Representatives this year. My name is Daniel Liu. I am the core for the Mid Atlantic, and I will be your moderator tonight. With me, I have some fabulous core members as a part of my team. So would you guys please introduce yourselves?
Hi, what's up, everyone? I'm Val Shabs. I'm from the New England region.
Dude, I always thought your last name was pronounced Chavez.
Shabs, dude. No Z at the end.
Dang. Yes. Who knew?
Hi, guys. I'm Vivian, and I am from the Southeast region.
Hi, everybody. My name is Andre Tell, and I'm from the Northwest region.
Awesome. So we had two guests. Unfortunately, they're having some technical difficulties hopping on the call. So hopefully they'll be able to join us later. But we're going to go ahead and get started since we did promise to start at 10. And we'll just hop right into it. So obviously, leadership within VSA is extremely important. One of the things that we want to kick off tonight's discussion with is conducting with your eBoard members as well as general members. So the way you present yourself, as well as how you handle different situations on eBoard. These personal skills as a leader are extremely important. And we'll talk a little bit about, different possible situations that you'll run into. So we definitely want this to be an open discussion. So if you guys have any questions, feel free to just message us in the chat on YouTube or on Google Hangout, and we'll definitely let you speak for a little bit or answer your questions. So yeah, that's how we're gonna get into it. So yeah, conducting yourself with your eBoard first, I guess. I would definitely say that it's important to be extremely professional and transparent. I think that is something that's critical in all types of leadership. And it's important because I think communication with your eBoard is important for you guys to be able to operate as a unit, operating together, having a set out vision, and executing that vision is all dependent on communication. Do you guys agree? Val, Vivian, feel free to chime in.
I think one of the keys to collaboration too is really developing that synergy with your team. One thing I always tell myself, and one thing I learned, especially being in MBA school and all, is that if you don't like your teammates, things aren't going to work. So I think when you do join an eBoard, you definitely have to adapt to the people around you. You can't expect them to adapt to your own personality. You have to adapt to them. You have to learn how to work with the people around you, kind of analyze their style, get to know them. And I think that's really one of the keys to success. And it really, in the long run, really helps towards building team synergy.
Yeah, I would definitely kind of agree on that. But I think when you think about eBoards, right? Everyone is elected in. It's a democracy, so you might not always like the people you're working with specifically. However, I would say that you guys are all running for eBoard, or you guys are all on eBoard, and you guys are all there for VSA. So it's important that that even if you don't like the people you're working with, you guys all have one common goal, which is to make VSA great. I think binding that together. Oftentimes, I was president for my local VSA at the University of Maryland College Park, and something that I always thought was important within the eBoard is that you never make someone do something that they don't want to do. I think it's important that when you have your eBoard members run, or when people run for eBoard, that they're really passionate about the position that they're going for. And in that sense, that'll lead to them enjoying their work, them working harder, for whatever task that they're given. And in that sense, overall, there will be a lot less problems within your eBoard, and the communication will be a lot more clear. There won't be as much things that you have to kind of mitigate. Yeah, I think that's, I mean, yeah, connecting yourself with your e-board is extremely important. And even if you're just a regular e-board member, or if you're not president, it's also important to always see both sides and really try to be open with your ideas, or be open to other ideas, because I think some people really get caught up in, carrying, like, or so, or a new idea, like, really taking ownership of it. And sometimes, you can get carried away and be really closed to criticism, because, criticism isn't something fun. We all have to go through it, but it's important to be able to take constructive criticism and turn that into something positive. And, being able to take criticism from your e-board members is something extremely important. Yeah. Do you guys have anything else to chime in for conducting yourself with your e-board, or do you guys have any questions?
Yeah. Well, I just wanted to kind of hop on, I guess, like bouncing off your statement, that kind of like communicating. A lot of people think it's just, being transparent and being open with your ideas. But I think I found that working with other people try to, people are always afraid to ask for help. And that goes along with communication too. Like, when you're working with someone, you're working with them for an entire year or for however long your term is. And to be honest, we're all human. And I think what people tend to do is they're really scared of letting other people down, or they're scared to, just really take a step back sometimes and say, hey, team, like, I'm kind of like, I'm having a hard time this week. I need you to cover me. And then, I think when I was working on a team, I always made it sure it was more like a give it, an ebb and flow, or like give and take. Like, there's gonna be moments where you need help, and you're gonna need like the support of your team, and the team will be there to support you, or your board will be there to support you. And then in return, whenever someone else needs help, you can definitely give back to them. And that's why, like, whenever I worked with people, I always emphasize the importance of, like, don't be afraid to make a mistake. Just be, kind of going off what Daniel said, like, be willing to accept like criticisms or take ownership of your mistakes sometimes when it happens. Because whenever I was president, I would always invite people to say, but I'd always invite people to tell me what I could do to like be better, or what they thought, or to tell me if they thought I made a mistake or something. So then that way, like, I feel like everyone kind of feels like we're contributing together. And when we're going throughout the year, it feels like we're working together, because, we're not expected to be like, I guess, 100% perfect all the time. It's always more about like us working together and trying to balance each other out, and really being there to support each other the whole time.
Yeah, I think that's a really interesting point you brought up, of just like supporting each other, because I think, especially with school, when you're in school with VSA, like, your e-board members can definitely get overwhelmed at different times, throughout the semester or throughout the year. Midterms come up at different times, or they have something going on in their personal life, and it's really important to establish that culture of that, because a lot of people, when they're given a task as a e-board member, they feel like they have to complete it themselves. They feel like all the weight is on themselves, but you guys are a team, so make sure that everybody in your team knows that they can support each other, and that you can always levy off some weight in order to accomplish the goal like you guys have planned. Yeah, I mean, moving on, we'll probably talk we're going to talk a little bit about connecting with your e-board, but of course your general members. Personally, I think one of the most important things when it comes to conducting yourself with general members is for VSA. I think general members, they look up to e-board members for, that. They look up to e-board members as role models, not only within, your school or, their personal lives, but for sure their involvement with VSA. So I think it's extremely important to show like that you care about this organization. I mean, if you don't care about it, if your e-board members don't care about it, then why would general members ever care, right? And that goes for pretty much everything that goes on within your VSA, events, fundraisers, and you plan. If you think about the purpose, and while you're executing the event, you kind of feel like, oh, we're just doing this because we did it last year. That's definitely not a good sign. Everyone on your board should be passionate about anything you're executing. And I think that will really reflect off on general members. General members really see that, wow, these people really care about this event. These people, they really care about VSA. And they'll see something there that, and that will really motivate them to keep coming back to VSA, contribute to VSA, and become a part of your community. Yeah, I think that is definitely one of the most important things when it comes to general members, is just being a strong role model.
I mean, I definitely agree too. And as you said, like e-board members, we are pretty much role models to our general members. But I think one of the biggest issues too that VSAs definitely do face, I know every single VSA is different, but a lot of e-board members sometimes do come off intimidating to general members. I know having a title some places can definitely be a bit of a big deal. But I think one of the things is definitely to make sure that like you kind of show your general members that like, even though you do have this title, even though you have a lot of passion, you do a lot of work for your organization, that you're still a student, that you're somebody who's exactly like them. And that's definitely going to, I believe, make them feel more comfortable within the organization, and maybe even make them more comfortable, to take the next step and, maybe run for e-board the following year. So I think definitely approaching your general members with a very, very normal human tone, and just kind of making them feel comfortable is one of the most important things you can do.
Yeah. Oh, go ahead.
I was going to propose, I guess, a situation that I tend to see. So say, you guys are on your board, you guys are on your e-board, and things don't work out right, or work out well. And, there's going to be some officers, and they basically start gossiping to members about, how you work or how other e-board positions work. So then now the general body member or general members kind of know, like, there's drama on board. How would you approach that situation?
Yeah, I mean, that's definitely something very, very common within VSAs. Word gets around and people love to talk, especially with this drama. I mean, like I said, you have to really establish that diversity within your e-board, become a very approachable person, like always take in criticism. And if this person who's spreading drama out to general members is doesn't feel comfortable telling you face to face, that's something that you have to address. Of course, you can't say who told you, but definitely reach out to that e-board member, talk about any concerns that they have right now, and hopefully you can kind of persuade them to tell you the truth and tell you face to face, because that's really important as an e-board. I mean, that's something that you would definitely tell them. Just, I think if you have any problems with me, please let me know, like in a one-on-one. Just talk about how, you're very open to criticism as well. And that's how to handle it, definitely on the e-board side. I mean, once you've handled that, like that definitely mitigates your problems, just because that e-board member will start reflecting once you maybe made the changes that they've talked about or come to a compromise. That e-board member will definitely start kind of supporting you again. And in that sense, general members will see that e-board member supporting you, and they'll kind of, I guess, turn around on that information. In terms of directly talking to general members about issues on e-board, I mean, I feel like e-board should be mostly transparent to the general members as well. If there is some drama going on e-board, you don't necessarily want to spew it out there for everybody, but make sure that you have a plan of action moving forward in order to handle it. And if it's going on with an event, and say there's not enough funding for an event, e-board members are talking about how we didn't start early enough to get sponsorship or something like that, that's definitely something that you can talk about, your action plan to get this funding, to get everything resolved. What are your next steps? Because there's really no point in looking backwards. And if you show them a strong action plan, usually actions speak louder than words. If you're going to execute these steps, you're going to get to the same goal you were before. If it's a personal issue, again, steps talk about how you guys will be coming to a compromise issue with that e-board member, and then having that e-board member support you again is going to be key. Anyone else have any input on that question, on that scenario? Okay, yeah, I mean, I would say one more thing about general members is that VSA is a family, right? And I think a lot of the times when you're on e-board, you can really get lost in the whole logistics of everything. So, making sure the event goes well, making sure your e-board members are performing, making sure that, every little thing is there and like that we sometimes can forget that VSA is supposed to be fun, right? So I would say that not only should you be interacting with your general members within VSA, but definitely, outside of VSA, reach out to them as much as possible, because that's going to show them that VSA, right? I mean, you're there to learn about culture for first and foremost, but I mean, we all bond over the fact that we have a passion for this culture, and we have a passion for leadership, right? So yeah, I definitely think something really important when you conduct yourself with general members is to reach out to them outside of VSA events, so they know it's real, and they know that you're really there for them, not just because you're another number on their attendee list, but you're someone that someone you actually care about.
I guess that's the thing. So yeah, usually a general member's first memory of VSA is through an officer reaching out to them and getting to know them as a person and as a friend. So definitely you got to highlight, and also make sure that they're comfortable with you as a leader approaching them, and make sure that they keep on coming to general meetings and everything.
And I got something to add too. When this is from my experience as president last year, being transparent as an e-board is good, but also being on the same page. All the e-boards should be kind of have a rough idea of what they're doing, but each officer kind of has a different duty. Say a culture chair and a sports chair. So someone who sees the sports chair a lot more than they see the culture chair, they want to know more about the culture show. They would ask the sports chair, because he's an officer, about what's the culture show, what's details on the culture show. A bad answer would be the sports chair is oh, I don't know, you have to ask this culture chair. But then a good officer answer would be he'll give him what he knows, but then he'll also contact the sports or culture chair and get him the information, get the member the information later, just for the member's convenience. But when an officer kind of disregards a question, oh, I'm not the culture chair, oh, I'm not the sports chair, I don't know that, go ask them. That's very discouraging for the members as well. So I think if all the e-boards are kind of on the same page, have a universal answer for an upcoming event, it's really good for the members to know as well.
Okay. Yeah, definitely. So yeah, the next topic we're going to be talking about how to deal with burnt out officers. This is going to be our last topic in terms of conducting ourselves, but burnt out officers is definitely tricky. I mean, like I mentioned before, you have your exams, you have your midterms, you have personal problems, and e-board members can definitely get burnt out. A big portion of a big thing that you can do to resolve this that we already previously talked about is ensuring that they know about the support network, right? The rest of their team is there to chime in, chip in, volunteer for anytime anyone is having problems or issues, and letting them know that taking a break is okay. VSA is something really important. We all work our hardest to make it the best it can be, appeal to the members, but everybody needs their downtime. Not everybody can be VSA all the time, 24/7. So it's important to give somebody, it's important to give your e-board members that idea, to implant that idea in their mind that they don't have to be they don't have to carry all the weight on their own, especially when they're dealing with tough times and they need to take a step back and relax. So definitely encourage asking for help, encourage taking breaks, and maybe talk a little bit more about their personal lives and getting to know them and how they work. I think that's something extremely important, especially if you're president, but also if you're a fellow e-board member, learning how your peers work, or how they run into the stress, how they deal with the stress. I feel like that's something that you all definitely have to talk about. Starting as an e-board in the beginning of the year is just that one of the questions that I always ask is just like, when can we tell you're stressed out, and when can we tell and help you alleviate your stress. And those questions are so important because when it does come time and when you start seeing signs of it, it's important to reach out to those people personally, offer them help, offer them a break. And I think that will definitely, remotivate themselves to start working on VSA again, start being passionate again, just because they know that they have that support network and that they're not in it alone.
Yeah, I mean, I think you definitely nailed the point when you talked about really talking about their personal life. I think not everyone knows what's going on in like every single teammate's life. If somebody's burnt out, maybe they're not putting up their production that you expect out of them. Maybe you kind of gotta talk to them, kind of find out what's going on in their life. If there's anything that's really becoming a burden to them and really affecting their work. I think kind of finding the root cause and kind of diagnosing the issue from that point on is also very important. And I think kind of understanding them and kind of letting them know that you're there as a form of support for them throughout the entire process is also very important, because that makes them feel more comfortable. And not only that, but it also makes you feel more approachable as a leader.
Yeah, and I guess it's kind of going off that, trying to prevent it, I try to use like a lot more positive reinforcement on my team than say negative reinforcement. So kind of throughout the year, whenever I notice someone that's working hard, whenever we have our officer meetings, I really try to do like officer highlights and really highlight the people that are doing work but aren't getting as much recognition. So that way it kind of like makes everyone feel like their work is validated and they're that they're not unappreciated or anything. And so that way it kind of really reinforces the idea that each person has like a really invaluable they're an invaluable asset to the team, and no one's just like everyone's important and they have their own function. So in that way, like I think everyone kind of even if you're down, like we are gonna have those moments, you'll pull through because you know that you mean something to the group.
Cool. We actually just had one of our guests hop on, Thuy Anh. She's from the Northwest, and I will let her introduce herself really quickly.
Hi, everyone. It's really great to be here. Sorry, I wasn't here before, some technical difficulties. But again, like Daniel was saying, I'm from the Northwest, born and raised in Portland, Oregon. I graduated from the University of Oregon recently. While I was there, I was an intern and became co-director of the VSA there. In the year that I was co-director, we ended up getting Most Outstanding VSA in UNAFSA, and that was really exciting. And then after I graduated, I came on to be co-ED of our regional camp, as well as programming director of our leadership summit. So now that you know my life story, we can move on.
Cool. Yeah. So just to catch you up to speed, we're just talking about burned out officers. Do you have any experience with burned out officers and any tips on how to handle that situation?
Yeah, I think for me personally, I've definitely been one of those people that have burned out. And I think it's always great to take a break. I don't know what anyone else has said. Maybe you've all brought it up before, but yeah, there's nothing wrong with taking a break. I think in VSA, we can get really wrapped up in our organizations, but at the end of the day, you can't deny the fact that being in VSA, being a part of it, does take a lot from your academic life and your professional life. And when you can't take care of those things, it really reflects on your work within VSA as well. So learning when to recognize the signs of burnout, you know, really not paying it. Like I've noticed one of my officers maybe not paying much attention in our exec meetings, and at that point, make it not about their work performance, but rather, you know, their well-being and their health. Self-care is really important to what we're doing. So yeah, hopefully that was the question.
Definitely, yeah. We definitely all talked about ensuring that you show that you care about the e-board member, and then you know, breaks are definitely understandable, and that you guys are all in it as a team. So that's definitely some of the top points that we hit there. But yeah, we're going to be moving on. So the next topic that we want to talk about is branding and marketing. I think branding and marketing are two critical, you know, pillars of your VSA as you know, not. I mean, I know it doesn't sound as important, but in my personal experience, branding and marketing can make your entire VSA experience like completely different. So the first topic we'll be talking about is taking advantage of social media. So, you know, when you're in VSA, social media is critical, right? So reaching out to your members, advertising your events, and making sure that overall your VSA has a positive image to your community and your members, right? So I would say some of the things that, you know, we definitely do with social media while I was present back at College Park and now on executive board for the Mid-Atlantic is that we really try to push for that professionalism look within all of the text that we put out and all of the images that we put out. So we try to put a lot of effort into all of the graphics that go out, just so that a lot of people, so that, you know, the people viewing our content take us a little bit more seriously. And I think that is important. I think that's something UNAVSA does extremely well, as well, is that their graphics and their posts and their all the writing that comes out is very professional, and that adds you know, legitimacy to your organization, and it can help you get, you know, sponsors, can help you interact with other organizations, like have more connections with other organizations, and just set a better general mindset within all of your members. Yeah, Thuyen, any comments on that?
Yeah, I think to coincide with that, I definitely agree with you. That's I feel like that's the kind of tips we have at Northwest VSA and at UVO VSA as well. I definitely have to give credit to Toke Vin, who pretty much managed UVO's media team for 3 years, and he went on to help out Northwest VSA for a couple years as well. That consistency, I think something that really helps is set out a tone, maybe a theme at the beginning of the year for what you want for all of your events, and having that carry through, you know, having that kind of storyline throughout all the media and the depictions is really helpful, and all the little details do matter. I know at my school we had like banners on campus, had little flags placed around campus as well by all the academic buildings, made sure to get our stuff out in the dorms. So use your resources, know how to get your stuff out there. We had a specific, since UVO has co-directors, I was pretty much in charge of logistics and administration, and we had to be in charge of all the outward-facing aspects of VSA. And compartmentalizing your exec team like that can really help with your exposure as well.
Yeah, definitely. Val, Vivian, Andre?
I have something to add. So basically, like, I think I agree definitely about the importance of social media. One thing that me and one of my PR chairs kind of always said is, like, if you didn't take a picture of it, if you didn't post about it, did it even really happen? Because, even if you have like a really, really good event, your outreach is only contained to those people who are in the event. So kind of, it's like that next level step is, really like taking your awesome event and then putting it out on that platform and then really like improving your outreach. A really great tool for a lot of like new pages is like insights. So when you like go to the insights, you can like see how many people that you actually reach and how many people are actually seeing your post. And just I guess like common things that I noticed was that when you post a picture and you tag a lot of people, you tag people in it, like it's not only like whoever you post, it's whoever those people are friends with, or even videos. Like a lot of people seem to really react positively to videos. And I think kind of going along the lines of what was said before, for Facebook and Instagram and like Twitter, I think for those I would usually use as like a professional platform, just because it's just really good for kind of members to see what you do, what you're doing for the community. And some people use it as resources for their sponsorships. So, if you're trying to reach out for sponsors and they're like, what is this organization? You can direct them to your Facebook to really show what you've done in the community and who's come out, who's present in your organization. And something unique that I kind of liked that my school started doing was they added Snapchat, but they added Snapchat as more like a behind the officers look. So then it kind of brings dimension to the organization. So it's not only like a like we're not only solely focusing on our professional image, we're also focusing on the other side, like, oh, what's it like to be an officer? How fun is it? And kind of like putting that enjoyment factor and that passion factor alongside the professional. Yeah, and that's my input.
Yeah, and I definitely agree too, especially with the tagging portion. Yesterday for New England, we actually just announced our brand new e-board, and we did tag a total of 7 people within that post, and those people actually shared it, and we actually ended up reaching a total of 5,400. You definitely nailed the point that when you do tag a person, it shows up in pretty much all of their friends' feeds, which is incredibly valuable in terms of outreach. And on top of that too, you also definitely nailed the point in regards to kind of showing life, because like, especially when you have VSA at the local level, professionalism might not be the #1 concern on social media. Obviously, you don't want to go on social media and start saying bad stuff and making your VSA kind of look incredibly bad, but you can go on there, probably post something funny, tag people in it, make sure your grammar is nice, and it just shows a lot of life in your organization. It shows that you guys are fun people, shows that you're people that other people want to be around. So I think that's also very important too, because definitely I think, just to play a little bit of devil's advocate here, if you're going to try to be too professional, especially at the local level, you're going to come off as a robot. And at that point, will VSA really come off as fun to people and prospective members?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely agree with that as well. Especially, I like the point that both of you guys brought up, that it's really important to think about what level and of VSA you're at and who your audience is, right? Because like you said, with the local VSA, you definitely want to show a little bit more life, since they don't necessarily know what VSA is all about yet, and showing them that you guys are very fun and you guys are very easy to talk to or very approachable, is going to lead them to come out more and learn more, and maybe eventually enter that professional space with VSA. One last thing I wanted to add about social media is just that I think it's really effective to also incorporate VSA into your personal social media. So not just focusing on your organization's social media, but showing that VSA is also a big part of your life and that you're very passionate about it. While I was in school, most people knew that I lived and breathed VSA. So really, a lot of my social media posts would be about it, whether it's attending events or planning events or doing this and that, a fundraiser for VSA. A lot of my non-VSA friends would see it, whether it's on Facebook or Instagram, and just ask me about it, right? It's definitely a conversation starter for them to learn more about the organization. And you might run into somebody who is interested in joining. And I think it's such a great way to appeal to people who never thought they would ever join VSA in the first place. And I think that's something really cool about incorporating the VSA into your own personal social media. But along with social media, I think it's also it could arguably be more important to advertise in person. And I would say Okay, we'll get to that question later. But yeah, I think it could arguably be more important to advertise in person because social media, it's extremely effective, but it is a mass marketing tool. So when something goes out to a lot of different people, the effectiveness of it is definitely a little dampened because it doesn't feel personal. You don't feel like the organization is necessarily reaching out to you. They're just reaching out to a large crowd. But when you talk to someone one-on-one or you talk to a small group about VSA and how passionate you are, they can definitely get a better gauge of your excitedness for it, and also just what is so great. Or they can ask questions. It can be more interactive, and I think that's something that is invaluable. And I think it's extremely important to talk about VSA, and I'll always have that kind of 30-second elevator pitch that you can drop on somebody and then answer all their questions about it. Do you guys have any other input on that?
Yeah, I definitely agree with that because as an officer and even members of VSA, you guys are representatives of your organization, and through that, you're able to tell your other friends who are outside the VSA community to pretty much tell your experience as a member, as an officer, and through that they're able to gain first-hand knowledge of what VSA is and how it has affected you.
Tuyen, Val?
Yeah, I don't disagree with anything that's been said. I think some really great techniques to get that face value with people who you may not interact with every day on campus. If you're able to table, right outside your memorial union or class, that's really, really great. I think my group has gone as far as to pitch things in our class. Granted, I went to business school, so that was pretty common to be able to kind of pitch what we're doing outside of class and bring it into our academics as well. Yeah, put yourself out there and try to reach people that you wouldn't normally try to reach. Again, VSA is not just for Vietnamese people, so try to get creative with who you're trying to outreach to.
Yeah, and one thing I want to add as well is follow-up is super important. I know, after I'm meeting someone in person, they'll go ahead and add me on Facebook, but then they'll also, in the beginning when I was just a freshman, I would have officers kind of posting on my wall hey, it was really nice meeting you, or I hope you come up, or when an event came up, they would message me saying, I hope to see you at this event and stuff. And I think it was just kind of nice because it made me feel that they remembered me and that they enjoyed I guess meeting me, and that they wanted to for me to continue. So that kind of helped me want to come back out again.
I think that is extremely important. I put it in the chat, but I think that's something actually crucial. It's something that I definitely told all of my officers, while we were reaching out to members, is that, after first GBM, I think we all know that after our first general body meeting or our first event, tons of people come out, and way more than that you would normally expect. And then the follow-up is really what gets them to come to the second meeting. So that was a really great point that you brought up, Vivian. Okay, yeah, so that's it for branding and marketing. But let's take a quick.
Yeah, sorry.
Oh, I was gonna say let's take a quick break from the scheduled programming to answer a question that I think is really interesting that Andy brought up, which is how can you add more culture beyond just food at the local VSAs? And one of the biggest criticisms of VSA is being simply a social organization. I think that ties into both of the topics that we talked about already, which is conducting yourself with your general members, your e-board, your community, and also branding and marketing, which are two very important things when it comes to this. So yes, you can't argue that, you know, one of the biggest criticisms for VSA is that like we get branded as a social organization very easily, just because you know, we're open to everyone. We have a lot of events where we meet up, and of course it is extremely hard to cater to college students without having a social aspect to it. Personally, I would say that Vietnamese culture, yes, it's the food, yes, it's, you know, the ao dai and stuff, but I would say that on top of that, I've learned so much about leadership from you know, the Vietnamese culture. Number one, just family. I would say, I think the majority of other organizations at my school would always ask us, or ask VSA leadership, you know, why do people think VSA is so different? Like, why does it just have this different feel when you come to an event? And I think the number one thing is how open we are, and the concept of the family friends. So when you look at a lot of other cultures, like family friends aren't necessarily such a big thing in their lives. But especially with Vietnamese culture, you know, when you meet someone for their first time, you know, you're referring to them as, you know, your uncle or your aunt, or like, you know, your family friends as kids, you pretty much consider them your cousins. So I think that's something extremely important that we take away, is when you meet somebody for the first time, you're able to treat them like they're a family member. You're able to have a good time with them and talk to them. I know a lot of us talk about how a lot of us, you know, see our parents and how obnoxiously loud they can be in restaurants. But that's just them having a good time, and that's them, you know, expressing that it's really easy to meet anyone, get to know them. And I think that's something really unique from the Vietnamese culture. That's not necessarily all about the food or the materialistic items that we take into our VSAs and makes VSA as an organization unique. Does anyone else have any comments on Andy's question?
Yeah, I want to add something. What Daniel said is great and all. I think I want to focus on the criticism aspect, where like if VSA could focus so much on like its culture dancing, and its family program. However, it will always get critiqued. So I think it's back on this media marketing is how we portray our VSA on social media. Like if we portray a more cultural aspect, the community can pull up our Facebook, parents can look at our Facebook, other people outside of VSA can pull up our Facebook and website. Then the criticism would lower, because we are showing more culture and less on social media. Then the critique would lower. Yeah.
Cool. Thanks, Phil.
I guess I have something to add. I know a lot of people of VSAs really do focus on the social aspect, and whenever I talk to other people about it, I try to actually kind of capitalize on that, because if you think about it, there's a lot of people who going to college, they weren't surrounded by other people like them. They weren't surrounded by other people who, you know, shared in their culture. And for me, I think I really tried to focus on an atmosphere that celebrated our heritage and like being proud of like where you came from. So it kind of like allows you to like going into a VSA, it's kind of nice to be with someone that kind of understands you, because, you know, there are certain times like growing up, there were disconnects, or there's times that you had moments in your family life that you couldn't as easily connect to other people about. So I think that's actually when that is a criticism, I try to take it and market it in a different way. And then just trying to think about adding more culture. Honestly, like I think there's two ways that I kind of attack this situation. And one is, you know, the whole lecture thing. And for me personally, I think when people go from like classes to events and meetings, it's not as effective to like lecture on stuff. I think what our VSA tries to do is try to provide opportunities where you can learn more about Vietnamese stuff on campus. So because our campus actually offers like Vietnamese classes, and trying to have that a resource for them there. And then in meetings and events, I try to like think about ways we can add culture in a more fun way. Like saying, like, one thing is people love competition. Like if you ever have a meeting and you know, do a little quick game show and you do it based off Vietnamese culture, people actually get really, really invested because it's a fun way to learn culture. So it's not, so when you think about adding culture to your VSAs, it's not just adding content, it's adding content that, and in a way that can engage others. Another way that we do things is just like, one time we had a word of the day and it was vote die, you know, clapping. And then there's times whenever there's an event, people would just shout that phrase out, or like, you know, trying to introduce phrases that people can use in conversations, or trying to capitalize on that on social media campaigns. Like one thing we try to do is, you know, if there's a certain word, like we can try to have a social media campaign like based around this, like how can you most creatively incorporate this into your daily life, and then like giving them a prize. So then that way people can like make creative posts about like a Vietnamese topic online, and it kind of spreads through other platforms in that way. So I think the biggest thing about trying to add culture to VSAs is trying to make it fun for members to learn about culture, and just being really creative about that.
I have one last thing to add to that I think ties in with the leadership aspect and the social aspect. So I think it's really important for us to not think of, you know, VSA doesn't exist just in a vacuum. I think it's important to take ourselves individually outside of what we get from it, right? We get identity, a sense of community, we gain leadership skills from our organization, but how do we take that and bring it outside of our organization, maybe connecting with others, bringing it into the grander scheme of our community, bringing all of those aspects and trying to contribute. For instance, I know at the UVO campus, we, you know, our VSA is actually quite small. So a lot of our base and support comes from other students. And in the past, you know, VSA has participated in protests, in rallies, and I think that's really important to show up outside of our organization as well and support all the other groups and ideals that are out there, and how we can connect to them as well.
Yeah, I think all of those points were, you know, extremely important, and they definitely tie into this little last point that I want to make. Is just that like delivery is so important. Like Vivian mentioned, like you know, you're not going to get through any, you know, college kid's head with a lecture, right? They already you know, spend tons of hours a week going to lectures, and that's not what they want to hear, especially when they're showing up to an organization that they're looking to have fun in. So games or other delivery methods are so important. And this could be a whole nother podcast, but or another series. But you know, we all live, you know, not just the Vietnamese life, but we live the Vietnamese American or Canadian life, right? So mixing the two cultures and incorporating them together definitely adds to, you know, a unique experience that we're having, right? We're not living the strict Vietnamese life. We're living that Vietnamese American or Canadian life, and having those little aspects of culture that we grew up crossing over on both is, I think, something that we all can relate to, and that really, really brings us together. Cool, and I think we'll just keep going on with the questions since people definitely are interested to hear from us. So let's go over how does one follow up in an authentic way without sounding like the other clubs on campus from Pong. So my advice in this area is that following up is make sure that you're not following up just for VSA. So I'm honestly definitely guilty of this sometimes. I'll start advertising for an event, and then I'll open up a chat and I'll see my last message to this person was another advertisement for a VSA event. I'm sure that's all happened to anyone that's been on an officer board. But try to avoid that. I think that is something that's definitely key. Like I said, people are joining VSA for that authentic family experience. And in order to give them that, you really have to get to know as many people in your VSA as possible, if not all of them, and really build that personal connection. And when you follow up, I always try to, build some kind of, or have some kind of conversation outside of VSA with the person. So later that I can reference that part of their life, or, something that we had in common, in order to build a relationship that's just more than having them, again, be a number or an attendee at one of our events. So I think that's a really effective way to follow up with people, is just to actually get to know them as a person, and treat it like you're really trying to become friends with the person. Right.
I definitely agree with you too. I think definitely having a one-on-one conversation with people. I know, like you were just saying, you're guilty of sending people advertisements, but you don't always have to do that. Like when I was president of my VSA, she used to kind of try to talk to my general members one-on-one, even if it was through Facebook Messenger in person when I saw them on campus. And, definitely I do have a friendly conversation with them, kind of get to know them, kind of talk about how your day was, how their day was, and then maybe at the end just casually ask, like, am I going to see you at our next general meeting? I think those are definitely ways to kind of play it cool, play it sly. So on your end, I mean, maybe you're discreetly advertising VSA to them, but on their end, they think you're somebody who wants to be their friend, and you're somebody who's welcoming them to your organization. So I think playing it like that is also very beneficial, and it should, for the most part, sound authentic.
Yeah, and just kind of adding on to that, something that I like to do is, when you're advertising, if you do message them for an event, I like to kind of ask them like, oh, if you need a ride, let me know, because a lot of people in my college actually didn't have they don't have cars, and so they don't really have a way there. So it's kind of nice that like you offer them a way of like means of transportation to your event, and then that way they're actually getting to know whoever's driving them. And this is kind of really small, but I like to do this. But I take a lot of advantage of like the meme culture, because I'll just be scrolling on Facebook, and if I get closer to people, I'll definitely, I think of a conversation I had with them, I'll tag them in it. And it's something like really small and really fast to do, and it's such an easy way to like connect with people these days, and it makes them think that you thought of them, or like it gives them like a laugh, so that's like a really easy way to build a connection with someone.
Anyone else have any comments? We do have 2 more questions, so. Okay, yeah. So I think definitely was some good points. Hopefully we answered your question, Pong. Yeah, following up is key, and making everyone feel like they matter, and that they're a true part of your life is, I think, something that all of your eBoard members need to practice, and you yourself need to to be the role model and show everyone that that's the way it's supposed to be. Moving on, our next question is, how can one control rumors within VSA? This question most likely gives the impression of the organization as a social organization because of gossip and rumors, from Andrew Vo. I think we touched on this earlier in terms of Vivian's proposed scenario, just like an eBoard member taking the drama within eBoard and spreading it within the general members to kind of stir everything up. In terms of rumors within your VSA, I think it's just, as an eBoard member, as a leader, all you really can do is bring your eBoard together, and have a serious conversation about transparency, and have a constructive criticism session with your eBoard members. Talk about what you guys have been doing as an organization. Have anyone that feels comfortable asking for criticism to take that criticism, so that you guys can become better together. Because if you guys as an eBoard aren't operating together, the members will see that. It's very easy for members to see. It's a lot easier than you think for members to see you guys not meshing well together, or having drama, or having difficulties, putting on an event. Members aren't oblivious. They definitely will see that kind of stuff. So a big thing that you can do is just to make sure your team is all on the same page, and that you guys are all working towards the same thing and not working against each other. And in terms of that, I feel like that culture, if you spread it within your e-board, and then your e-board spreads it within your VSA, the overall presence and the overall image of your VSA will propagate to the rest of the community.
Yeah, another thing I like to add to that is within your e-board, you want to maintain confidentiality, because there are things where members should not know, where through events and logistics and everything, and there's some things that they should not know, because we want to keep a face to our members and keep a kind of a professional face, but at the same time where they don't see that we're disorganized, and that we are a well-built team, and we're all friends and everything.
Okay.
Yeah, I think. Sorry.
Oh, go ahead.
One last thing to add. I think whenever you're having, I guess, in the beginning of the year, if you have a retreat or a meeting, maybe try to do kind of a community rules thing, where everyone on the board collectively comes up with rules that everyone should follow throughout the year. And then kind of just add, really reinforce the idea of that no matter what happens, no matter what, you might be feeling or thinking, you all collectively want to present VSA as a strong, cohesive organization, despite, wanting to gossip or wanting to spin drama and stuff. So just really having that as one of your focal goals throughout the year, I think that kind of reinforces that thought into people's minds very at the beginning of the year. And then I guess, if a rumor does spread, the best thing you can do is just kind of roll it off and still promote positivity within your team. Because at the end of the day, the rumors are going to most likely affect your board. So I think it's just more focusing on trying to promote a more positive atmosphere, trying to just kind of let it roll off, because, the more you fixate on it, the more likely it's going to grow into something bigger.
Cool. So we are running out of time here, but I think we're going to wrap it up with these last two questions. So Blossom asks, how can one foster and strengthen the culture aspect within VSA if there isn't a strong presence of Vietnamese students in the club / on campus? This is a tough one. It's not something that I have experience with, but I feel like I could definitely give a few pointers here and there. I think one of the major things that you just really need to focus on then is education, because if you yourself are also learning about the culture, then put a lot of your efforts into finding consumable ways to give your members, or not to give your members, but to educate your members on the culture. Like Vivian said, with games or with interesting campaigns, like she said, where you have word of the day and people just start screaming that out, or you tell people to incorporate a certain part of Vietnamese culture into their lives and see how that goes for a week. I think finding these, you just really have to be really creative with how you deliver the culture, and show that not only are they just learning it for no reason because they're in VSA, how it's going to impact their lives, and how how it's going to be not only beneficial to them, but an important part in their lives, right? So does anyone else have any comments on that?
I think I would just again emphasize trying to connect with other cultural groups. If you have them, events, they'll attend yours. It's almost like kind of quid pro quo, right? I think the engagement aspect of trying to reach out to community members is super important. You know, I'm thinking about this on a event general meeting scale. For myself, again, my VSA is really small, and we really try not to let our general membership bog us down and rely on our community and the support from the grant community to really put our culture on a pedestal and present it in a way where we see fit, rather than just trying to think about it in a numbers way. I think that's important to remember when you're trying to, I guess, when you're bogged down by thinking about having a strong presence, because there's not a lot of Vietnamese students. There may be a lot of people who are interested in your culture and trying to do a cultural exchange, trying to learn from one another.
Awesome. Yeah, definitely think that's important. Cool. Like I said, we are wrapping up with time, so I think this will be the last question we answer. But it's a very interesting one, and I feel like a lot of VSAs actually haven't quite come to the resolution yet. But how to keep your alumni relations, and how important is that for VSA? Jennifer Lay asks. For me, again, personally, I think it's really hard. Alumni relations is really hard. Like I said, I don't think it's a completely solved problem yet. And there are definitely organizations that are very successful in networking with their alumni. Personally, for me, at the University of Maryland College Park, I started an event completely focused around alumni, where we have a panel of alumni come out, a select panel of alumni come out. We try to rotate them every year since we started it, in order to give advice back to the students. And it's been relatively successful. I think it's a good way for alumni to see what the organization's current state is. It's good to see that for students, it's really good to see that alumni, from like 5-10 years ago, are coming back to give their time. And I feel like that shows them that VSA has made a big impact on their lives, that they would take the time to come back out to talk to the students. So I think that's I think alumni relations is all about not only giving alumni a bit of a flashback and to talk about their good times at VSA and how they can give back to the students, but also showing the students that alumni care and that VSA is something that is going to impact you for a lifetime, not just for your time in college. Anyone else have something to say about alumni relations?
I know for at my VSA at Oregon State, we were trying to we're starting to build an alumni log where we try to keep in contact with all the past presidents of the e-board, and through that, like through our culture show here, we go through that list and see and invite them and give them a free ticket to our culture show, and just to see how big and how grown the VSA has grown since then. And through that, like from our past culture show this year, so many alumni said like, wow, like VSA just has changed so much, and to see, and they're just so proud of the members and all the officers who were able to put on their show, just like that.
I mean, it definitely depends too what level of VSA you're at. And like I bring this up again because alumni network, especially at the regional level, are definitely different than at the local level. Because I know that from my own VSA, usually when our members graduate, they usually never come back. We always find jobs. We do find something better to do. Luckily, I was able to hang around this year because of graduate school. But most of us, we do cut our ties for the most part, and we do leave. Like absolutely no intention of. I mean, no bad blood involved. This is like all just done on our own will. Just finding new interests in life, and it's never really affected us in that way. But I think it definitely does vary between VSA to VSA. I think for some VSAs, it might be very important, more so important than others. I think it's also very important at the regional level. And I think being able to build a sustainable alumni network who can provide resources, whether it's just knowledge, whether it's monetary, it's very, very important. And in order to do that, definitely does require very strong ties and very strong team of networking.
Yeah, and I just want to add a point, kind of going off what Andre said about keeping an alumni log. My school hasn't done doesn't have an alumni association, but we're trying to start one up. And I think the way that we're trying to approach the situation is, reaching out to past alumni and then asking them if they would like to, be added to an alumni Facebook group. And instead of that Facebook group being more like, I guess, VSA focused, it's actually more just so people can stay in contact with each other. Say if anyone's ever in town and they want to visit anyone, or, I think for other alumni associations, they have tailgates, or they have like alums gathering at football games. So then that way it's just like a nice way for people to just come back and like reunite with friends that they haven't seen in a couple of years. And I think a few things that other people are thinking about doing is definitely from that alumni log, like consistently sending out invitations if they would like to receive invitations, because they're not going to be able to come out to an event if they don't know about it. And then if they do come out to an event, always have like an officer being willing to talk to them, because sometimes I think the hardest things for alumni is coming back and then seeing your organization with a whole new face. So really trying to, like, whenever they do come back, like really, really try to be as welcoming as you can. And, for our shows, we like to reserve seats for alumni. And yeah, just like doing like small things like that.
Yeah, I think in terms of alumni, you guys definitely covered it all. It's just really hard to like without a lot of alumni like to cut their ties, just because it's hard to see once you've done, once you invested yourself in VSA for so much time, see that it could add any more value to your life after you've graduated. So I would say that's where you really run this hard line. And I think a lot of alumni, I think a really good big shot that you have is getting them involved on the regional level. And in that way, they feel like they're a little bit a part of something a bit bigger. And they will definitely be willing to come back to your school and try to participate. But yeah, like I said, not exactly a solved problem. A lot of VSAs are still experimenting with their alumni networks and how to handle them, just like how Vivian is. Vivian's VSA is trying to make it more of a social thing, so on and so forth. Yes, we probably do have time to answer this last question if you guys are cool with that. I think this will definitely be the last question, just because we are running a little bit over time now. The last question is, how do you handle conflicts within eBoard? Working as a team can be hard sometimes and and also ruin friendships. How can one prevent that from happening? Also from Blossom. My personal experience is, yes, as a college student, as a new leader, it's really hard for a lot of people to separate business and friendships, right, or personal life. I think that's something, as a president or as other eBoard members, you really just have to set a standard and let everyone know that, all the decisions we make, everything that we do is strictly professional, and keeping that any kind of personal qualms out of your eBoard meetings or out of professional discussions. It's extremely difficult, but trying to make that separation and setting that standard from the beginning, so that everyone is aware that it could be an issue, is something that I think is really important. On top of that, just trying to control what could possibly go wrong. I mean, I know that sounds like a difficult task, but avoid, like, one really simple one is, like, avoid having couples on eBoard. You really never know what's going to happen. I mean, of course, in an election, you're going for, I feel like the first step to the difference between personal and business or organizations is elections, right? When you walk into an election, we're all VSA and family and fun and stuff, and then you walk into an election and people are going at each other's throats, because elections are extremely intense. And but it's one of the first tests to kind of see what candidates will we'll take we'll take any of the comments like well. I think that's important in terms of your elections in general, is that you see who is able to separate business and who is able to separate friendship from their job. So it's not only that it's almost like you have to take these preventative measures and see beforehand who is going to be fit for the job. And in that case, it's definitely the worst thing ever is having your friends run for having friends run for e-board just to be on e-board. I think that is something that you need to 100% avoid, because exactly like making sure that your VSA general body, or actually I know a lot of VSAs do e-board members as well, but just ahead of time, really speaking up during your elections, making it well known that, hey, this person might have issues separating their personal life and business. And that is something that you definitely have to take into account during your elections. And it's also a question that you can ask during elections too. I think that's something almost like a pre-screening, because and of course you're not going to catch them all. Someone could say that they would be really good at separating the two, and then during their term can act the complete opposite. And at that point, like I mentioned, you really just have to try and compromise with them and figure out a way to run your e-board with a complete transparent motto. Does anyone else have what do they talk about in this topic? Anything else to talk about in this topic?
You pretty much just told my life story, but I think you definitely really hit the point between being able to separate the professional life as well as your own personal life, because there definitely are a lot of people who kind of go into projects. They VSA or anything, they'll say like, oh yeah, I'm really good at that. I don't keep my personal life in, but then really they definitely do, and like you can see that affecting them, and it starts to really boil down. It really ruins team chemistry. So I think kind of cracking down to that subject and kind of identifying as soon as possible. I mean, that might not sound too helpful, but kind of stopping the situation as soon as you can before it snowballs is definitely one of the most important things you can do. And this is with somebody who has a hard time with that, with relationships, with pretty much anything that can be harmful. And I just found that really important.
And I guess I want to add like one more thing is, I guess when like handling conflicts, it's really honestly about how you reach out to the person, how you discuss with them like these conflicts. I know like there's certain ways, and it's really small, but it honestly can have the biggest impact on how your conversation goes. And there's like actually like techniques on how to present, constructive criticism, like small things like never say you, because that sounds like accusatory. I think there's like a thing called the sandwich method, where you start with a positive, then get to the issue that you would like to handle, and then end on a positive. So that way, like they don't go away they don't leave the conversation with a low morale. And then when you're going through criticism, like always make sure that was it in their control? Was it something that can actually be fixed, or was it situational? And I guess like one last thing I would say is sometimes I try to take the situation, make it like a little bit more personal, just saying like, oh, like things are really, I guess like getting harder with school, and I've been really stressed with this. Would you be able to, help me out? And like, like try to make it like more like, something where they feel like it's not, their fault. It's just something that I don't know, like, I guess, like, at the end of the day, it's mostly about delivery and how you deliver that message, and how you, like, I guess, work with them through it.
Awesome. I think we're going to end it there. Thank you, everybody, for hopping on and, asking questions and listening to us ramble about VSA for an hour. But I think VSA, leadership within your VSA, a lot of the topics we covered, we try to definitely hit some things that aren't as conventional or topics that you guys talk about. So hope you guys enjoyed it. Please feel free to reach out to any of us, me, Vivian, Val, Andre. We are core representatives for UNAVs, and our channels are always open. So feel free to add us on Facebook or message us, and we could definitely give you guys any advice on, with our experiences. Yeah, that's it. Thank you guys so much for hopping on. Any other closing statements? Alrighty, that's it. Lead the way with VSA.
Yay!